choice. I was saying to somebody just earlier, everything which happens to you in life, you have a choice. To go on the path of fear, to go on the path of anger and blame, or you got another choice. And it's inspiration gives you the other choice. To take that situation and use it for some different way of looking at the whole of life. People do have those spiritual experiences. They call it spiritual experience because you start to see the world in a totally different way, and very unexpected, in a beautiful way. I'm not quite sure what he felt then, but he was so much at peace, even with his leg torn off. And of course, later on, when that man who was responsible came up to him to say sorry, sorry for being heedless and being the cause of you losing your leg, this man said, no, you don't need to say sorry. Of course I forgive, there's nothing wrong there. Sometimes those acts of forgiveness, even when you've lost your leg, and you can forgive the person responsible. You see things like that, and it raises up your heart to see, my goodness, how can you do that? And if that person can do that, maybe I can do that. Maybe someone has been responsible, for your pain or suffering, or whatever it is which has caused you irritation. And it is their fault, you know it's their fault, but nevertheless, you don't wait for them to say sorry to you. You say sorry to them. I forgive you. Please forgive me. There's something about that which moves me, because I've seen that. It used to be a ceremony which we would do every year, at least once a year, in traditional Thailand. It doesn't happen these days. Usually at the New Year festival, which is in April, it's the Indian New Year. It's celebrated in Sri Lanka, in Burma, around April the 13th, 14th and 15th. At that time it used to be the custom that a husband and wife would meet together, and that day they'd ask forgiveness of each other. They'd say sorry. Whatever we've done in the last 12 months which has irritated you, things which I should have done, which I didn't do, which has caused you pain, I sincerely say sorry for that. It doesn't matter who says it first. It's said, and it's respected so much, the other person says, of course, I forgive you. Which means once every 12 months, the people living together can wipe the slate clean and can stop holding all these bad feelings, which when they build up over many, many years of a relationship, can cause a cancer in the heart, which will kill that relationship and mean you can't live with each other anymore. And I've seen this because people do come up to me when they're having problems with their relationships. And this is something which always hits me when people have trouble living together, because I've known both of you for such a long time. Both of you are such good people. And I can't figure out that, she's a good person, he's a good person. Why on earth can't you live together? You're both good people. And you are both good people, because you can't forgive. And sometimes it's gone on too long that you can't forgive. But every now and again, people do get inspired. And that inspiration, it doesn't make any sense. You may think, no, I shouldn't really do this. If I forgive him, he's going to do the same again. If I let her get away with this, who knows what she's going to do next. Stop thinking logically and reasonably, because inspiration goes in a different direction. And it mends the heart. Not the head, but the heart, which is what spirituality is all about. And not only that, the inspiration just gives a beautiful flavour to this world when you do see inspiring acts of kindness and generosity, because sometimes there's no reason for a person to help someone they don't even know. But they do it nevertheless. An example of that, there's one of our nuns, one of the bhikkhunis over at Dharmasara. And just before she became a bhikkhuni, or before she became a 10-precept nun rather, she had to give away all her worldly possessions, because as a monk you don't have anything. As a nun, you don't have anything. You know, I keep on saying that's why they're called nuns. A terrible joke. But anyway, anyway, that wasn't from inspiration, that joke. That was from desperation. But she literally she went to the bank to clean out her account. She'd given a donation to the Buddhist Society. She had some money left. And there was a fellow outside, I think, collecting for the Salvation Army or something, or Red Cross. I forget what it was, St. John's Ambulance. It could have been St. John's Ambulance. And she had a couple of $1,000. She just put it in the tin. And this person couldn't believe, because usually when you're collecting money in a tin, you maybe get a couple of dollars, you know, maybe 20 cents if you're, you know, and just little coins, and this was a couple of $1,000. And the guy couldn't believe this. And what happened next is the karma is always sort of interlaced. There's always some connection with these things. That was just a couple of weeks before we had our big ceremony, a 30th anniversary in Supreme Court Gardens. And being a big ceremony, it's on the Wesak night, on May, we had to have security guards. And who was actually working a security guard? But the guy who received this couple of $1,000. And he came up to me and he said, I was crying, because I'd never seen such an inspiring gift before. And it just happened he came to be a security guard at our event a few days later. And things like that really mean something. A few years later, when we held our the fourth global conference on Buddhism at the convention center here, the Buddhist Society, we ran this convention. And of course, being a conference, you have catering. But one of our monks, I don't know if he's here this evening, because he disrobed later on, but one of our monks, instead of having the meal, which was a really fine meal made by great chefs, he thought, no, I'm in Perth, I'm a monk. He took his bowl and just went on arms round through the streets of Perth. No one expected him. And he didn't know where he was going to get any food. He just walked, a monk with his bowl, in a western city. And he got plenty of food, but what really inspired him was one of the homeless men. People who sleep out, or maybe if they're lucky to find a refuge to stay the night, had a sandwich which he was given, and he put the sandwich in the monk's bowl. And when the monk received this sandwich from a person who had even less than he did, that moved him so much. But why is it that people who are so poor, they don't even have a place to sleep at night, still have that inspiration to be kind and generous and just put a sandwich in the bowl of a monk who was just walking peacefully down the road? That sort of moved him so much. And when he told the story, it moved me as well. Because I have been so fortunate to also witness such great acts of kindness and generosity. And also in my own way made those acts of generosity, which have been totally irrational. Sometimes that people have been in trouble. And you just stop what you're doing and just help them. I remember once getting into trouble the first year I was here. There was a girl who was in big trouble. She just stabbed her mother-in-law, and she was in hospital. And this girl was at the airport trying to get back to Thailand. And of course, I was one of the only people who could talk to her. So I went there straight away to talk to her. I was talking to her for hours, took her to the hospital, because she was going a bit crazy, to get her admitted, and spent about 5 or 6, 7 hours with her, I forget which. And I missed my lunch, and so I got into big trouble for the people who come to feed me that day, and I couldn't actually be with them. But who cares about missing a lunch when you can help somebody? And I would do that, you would do that, I'd hope. It doesn't matter how tired you are or how hungry you are. You just do it. Why? Because it needs to be done. It's irrational, but you just do it. And I've just seen just other great acts of kindness and generosity from many of the people who come here. But look at our centre here, look at our monastery at Gidjiegannup. You all know how that monastery started at Gidjiegannup. It's one of those inspiring stories. You know, we wanted to have a nuns' monastery, a place for women in Buddhism. So what do? We go looking around for some land, and I must admit that some of the committee members, they were a bit too practical. As for me, I'm into inspiration. So I looked at this 30-acre block up in Gidjiegannup, and as we went to look at it, we passed this sign, 600 acres of paradise. I remember that sign, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. And they said, oh, we can't afford 600 acres, come on, be real. And so we saw this 30-acre block, and it was just, it was okay, it was land, but it wasn't sort of the stuff which really moves you. And on the way back I say, I want to go and see this land. He said, you can't. I said, I want to. He said, it's impossible. I said, take me. So we saw it, and we rang up, and of course that's the land we eventually got. Totally sort of out of our range, but who cares? I think one of the reasons we could even get close to it was when people find out that we were going to do something inspiring, like a monastery for women, just for women, not part of our monks' monastery, but just for women. The word got around, and this man, I don't think I've seen him again. He came to see me at Bodhinyana Monastery. He wanted to make a donation for the nuns' monastery. He wanted to make a donation because he just had his first child, a girl. And he said, I want to do something out of celebration for my first child. It's a girl. Who knows? Maybe one day she might want to be a Buddhist nun. So I want to make that possible for her. And he wrote out a check for $250,000. And that blew me away. I've never seen at that time a check that big before. And that's the sort of thing where we get these monasteries from, where we get these buildings from, where we get this place from. So no way can we afford it. Who cares? Let's just do it and see what happens next. So in your life,